We just live right now, man. It's going down, excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we had a couple wins.
Hello and welcome to episode 194 of Deer Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast presented to you by us, the staff at Brewhoop. Wow, I am struggling. Why? Because it's probably just got through the new year. Happy New Year, everyone, and also thoughts and prayers to everyone out in California with those fires. Obviously, it is very sad. It's very tragic. So I know a lot of people, there's been lives lost, lots of homes have been destroyed. So sending our heartfelt thoughts over to those in California. I'm Kyle Carr. I am going to be the host. Riley is out. He is just not feeling 100%, but he will be back soon. I do have Adam joining me, though. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Kyle. I echo your sentiments about everything happening out in LA. Hope that things get resolved sooner rather than later. Truly awful situation. But I am glad to be back on the pod with you talking Bucks.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been a while. The Bucks had a good, not great week, I would say. They started the week with a game against the Toronto Raptors where they were able to win 128-104. Then on Wednesday, it was the big showdown against Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs on ESPN. I absolutely hated that. It was an 8:30 start. It was late, but the Bucks cruised to victory. They were propelled by a 34-point second quarter. Very good three-point shooting, win 121-105. The final score was definitely more gracious to San Antonio. Wemby was only held to 10 points, and 5 of those were within the first quarter. So very good job defensively. And then the Bucks went to Orlando, faced the Orlando Magic. Paolo Banchero was returning, and the Bucks were able to win there, 109-106. A little bit of a mess at the end of the game, not Milwaukee's fault, but Milwaukee had a strong second half to really kind of get the game back and kind of take control. Giannis had 41 points, 14 rebounds. Damian Lillard had 29 points. And then we got to Sunday, yesterday. They played the New York Knicks. First quarter was fine. You know, they were only down 3 going into the second quarter. It was all right. And then it got worse and worse. And then the fourth quarter was just truly awful. The Bucks lost 140-106. Yes, they lost by 34 points. So 3 wins is good. 1 really bad loss. Adam, what would you say is the biggest takeaway you got from the previous week?
It's hard with this team, right? I feel like we take 2 steps forward and then 1 steps back. But I feel like it is a little bit in a different way than it was last year. Like I as I keep watching, I keep trying to kind of think and wait for some sort of big breakthrough. And it continues to be disappointing that they're losing to the best teams in the league, which is kind of weird after what was happening last year, right? Like the team kind of looked like garbage, but they seem to have a pretty good net rating against the top teams in the league, and they seem to save themselves for that. But this year they just can't seem to pull it out, and that Knicks game was the worst of them all. But the thing I keep returning to that I'm trying to figure out is what this team is going to kind of hang its hat on and dictate the terms of the game to the other team. I think 3-point shooting is clearly, like, outside of Giannis, probably their best skill. They're second in the league at that right now, 38.6, which is really surprising after how the season started. But that also makes me a little nervous. I don't know about you. I feel like as a Bucks fan, it's inherent to be nervous about a team doing well 3-point shooting and just assuming that might crater back to earth. So maybe I'll have to ask you this. I'm trying to figure out where this team's sort of reliable offensive identity is going to flow from outside of Giannis, because I know Dame can do his shooting thing. Oh, did I lose you? Dame can do his shooting thing, and Giannis can kind of do his thing, obviously. And Giannis can do his thing, obviously. But outside of those two, I mean, Giannis is dictating the terms of the offensive flow to the other team. But outside of him, I'm still struggling to figure out what any sort of offensive identity is for this team to force other teams to adapt or change or have to adjust what they're doing. So I don't know. How have you been feeling about the offense lately?
This is the tough part because I feel like the Bucks aren't making any team adapt to them. It feels as though it's Giannis is option A and everything revolves around him. If Giannis is on, everything else works. If Giannis struggles, maybe Dame steps up, but it kind of feels as though it's kind of like the Bucks of the past where Giannis is able to kind of dictate everything and you just hope that the shooters shoot well. And that's really kind of it. I think Dame adds another element where there is a bit more pick and roll, especially with Brook. I think his ability to score at 3 levels is helpful. Like we saw it early in the Knicks game where Dame had like a 7-point like 7-point barrage. It was like he dribbled, got to the elbow, was able to get that shot, take the shot, make it. And then the other time was a 3. It was like you can see where Dame, if he can get to his spots and he can get going, that's where the offense could be, but it still feels very reliant on 3-point shooting. So Brook Lopez needing to shoot the ball well. Khris Middleton needs to shoot the ball well. AJ Green, he's done it, thankfully, but it's like AJ Green, Taurean Prince, when Gary Trent Jr. is healthy, it's like they still need all of these role players to be able to shoot the ball. The only, I guess, rotation player that isn't expected to shoot is Andre Jackson Jr., which I'll talk about a little bit more. And even then, it's kind of like if he has a corner 3, he'll take it. But Andre Jackson Jr. is the only one where it's not as though his primary thing that he needs to do on offense, especially when Giannis on the floor, is shoot. And I think that's the tough part is Milwaukee's not making any team adapt to them. It's kind of just more of a, well, if Milwaukee hit shots, like we saw, when Milwaukee was hitting shots against the Spurs, everything was working, everything was flowing, ball movement was great. And then we've seen in the past where if the shots aren't falling, then it's kind of like, all right, what is plan B? There's not really a great plan B.
And you're right. I mean, that's been the tough part. You were kind of hoping when Dame came in, right, that the other thing he would provide is some sort of pressure downhill at the rim, because there's not really anyone else who can put pressure at the rim on this team right now. Certainly not Khris in whatever state he's in. Maybe Brook a little bit as a roller, but like, I don't know. I mean, that's always so wishy-washy and matchup dependent. So it's really like Giannis putting pressure on the other team to get to the rim. And I don't know how different that is from years past, right? Like when we had Drew could kind of do that in bully ball, and Dame still has some speed to do that. But you know, the thing that we were talking about in terms of them forcing other teams to adapt, I feel like one of the problems with that is like the only thing I would say that this team is doing at an elite level right now is shooting threes and kind of shooting overall. They're like, second bet, they're cleaning the glass has them third in the league in terms of effective field goal percentage. And some of that is weighted for how good they're shooting from 3. That is, good. It's nice to have a team that can make shots, but when that's the only way that you're technically elite right now, and on top of that, your offense is still kind of middle of the pack to not the best, that's a little bit dispiriting to me, because you would just hope that if you have a team shooting that well, then you are also possibly opening up more lanes for people to take advantage of, get to the rim even more. But the roster just doesn't have that makeup right now. So I want to see how this team continues to gel. And I don't want to be totally negative, because the one thing I do think that I've been seeing more of is I do think the Dame Giannis pick and roll is not like whatever we all want it to be, right? It's not this total solution, but I think they've looked a lot better the last like 10 games or so. Like I think they're not having Giannis like go high, screen for Dame really high up the court like they did a little bit last year, or like the way Brook does. They're like going a little bit closer, a little more like side sort of pick and roll. They're having Dame try and fling that like pocket pass to Giannis as he's rolling from the elbow in. That action I think has been awesome, and I really want to see a lot more of that from them. So I think that is probably the most important takeaway from the last like couple games that I've seen, is it does feel like they finally have found a little bit of chemistry there.
Yeah, I would say the most notable was the Orlando Magic game, where it just felt like, especially late, it was like, all right, we're just going to spam this. We're just going to do this over and over and over. And it was working. And that was kind of the example of we can see that it has been significantly better than last season and even the beginning of this year. So it's encouraging. At least we know they can do it, and they can do it, and they will go for it. So that was like the game that really stood out to me when you mentioned it. I was like, yeah, they did it a lot against Orlando, and I was trying to remember that. So that is the positive, but I mean, but again, it's kind of one of those where it's like that's not making teams adjust. That's just Milwaukee being able to use two talented players, and they seem to have finally have gotten that figured out. And if we're not going to play Brook that much, then it kind of makes it feel like there is no pick and roll offense. Like, yes, you still have the Khris, Giannis, but that's not used as frequently. And now we have Dame and Giannis, but again, when they decide to do it, it's getting better, but still not, it's not like an automatic bucket. So now it's kind of like, who's the other option or what else do we have? But I will say, yes, it has gotten much better. And maybe it's not at the level that everyone's expected it to be, but you can't look at it this year compared to last year and say there hasn't been like chemistry between the two.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think it's hard, right? Because like you said, they don't run the Khris Giannis pick and roll that much. When they do, I mean, there are still some of those magical passes between those two, which is still really fun to watch. But the hope is that, they keep that rolling and hopefully Dame can kind of keep it up and keep up whatever sort of offensive flow that he's going to have. And I think what they're really missing, right, is the Khris component. Like they're missing the element of someone else who can provide a little bit of gravity beyond just what they're shooting, because no one else on the team is really doing that right now. And I don't know if you think now is the time to talk about the Khris to the bench move or not, but I was kind of curious for your thoughts on that.
It's weird because I've been saying that maybe in the later end of Khris that he would be a great 6-man option. And it was weird because I was saying that before, like, the injury seemed to have really gotten to him. It was just like, yeah, maybe this could be an option. And ironically, I'm right. I don't like the reason why I'm right, but it made sense. Like, it made sense to have Khris come off the bench and have Taurean Prince start in his place. It was that lineup of Dame, Andre Jackson Jr., Taurean Prince, Giannis, and Brook that really turned things around for Milwaukee. It is that lineup that seems to get everything that the Bucks need. You still have a pretty solid wing defender in Prince and Andre Jackson Jr. You still have the offense in Giannis and Dame. You still have Brook's ability to both shoot and also defend at the rim. So it kind of just felt like trying to force Khris back in, especially as he is on this minutes restriction and as he is working his way back from basically not playing basketball in 8 months. It made a lot of sense to me. And I think, yes, Taurean Prince did not have the best December, but you have that lineup chemistry. You had the guys that were familiar. You may as well keep rolling with it. And now, as we've seen with Khris, it's like his dribbling just seems a lot more loose with his handles, and he can't get to his spots like he did before. And it just feels like he cannot get into a rhythm where if you have him come off the bench, he's going to be either the main option, potentially the second option, probably. Maybe it's the third option if him, Giannis, and Dame are on at the same time, but that's more in crunch time. So it felt like you could give Khris the freedom and flexibility to do more with him coming off the bench. So I think to me, it just makes sense. How long they're going to do this, I don't know. That's the part where I'm like, all right, is this going to be like a permanent thing? Or are we just doing it until he gets back up to speed? And I think I said, like, if you're going to ease him in and then when it gets to like late February, early March, you put him back in the starting lineup, then I would have no problem with it. But I know Khris is going to be out tomorrow / today, depending on when you're listening. Probably today when you're listening to this against the Kings. So I don't know. It feels as though it makes sense, and it's not as though Khris is playing poorly, but it also feels like he's not playing at the level that we would hope he is at.
Yeah, that last point was what I was going to ask you is do you think this is a strategy that they're going to continue with moving forward, or is it just a means to an end to try and fast track some of his development to get back? I mean, I know what they're saying are all sort of injury related stuff. And I mean, at this point, I'm almost inclined to just say, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I mean, if the guy is not able to play random games in what will this be? One game in 4 days or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, then clearly they are quite concerned about, and he I think Khris also said, like, I mean, it's flaring up again. I can't remember if it was him or Doc.
Yeah,
who
he had
said
like
that.
tendonitis or something like that.
Yeah, there was some weird medical tendinopathy or whatever that weird medical term is, and so very clearly he's not back to 100%. And I think the question is, right, will he ever be this season? Is it something he's just going to have to fight through as he gets closer to the end of the season? And I mean, based on everything we know he's someone who will absolutely play through injury when crunch time comes in the playoffs. He has a history of doing that. That's like one of the reasons Giannis is cited as wanting Khris to always be in Milwaukee, is fighting through that sick illness in the Raptors series so long ago. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm okay with it for now too. I think as long as it means he will eventually move back to the starting lineup, because I also think Khris is someone who needs the ball to get back into what his rhythm is going to be, and he hasn't found it so far. So like you said, I'm good with it if it means he will eventually get back to the starting lineup, because I want to see those three together. Like, otherwise, what's kind of the point of this whole thing is if we're not going to play those three together.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to get them in the starting lineup by March.
Yeah,
mid-March.
That's a good shot. That's
absolutely is. Because they need to get time to get back to having him in the starting lineup. I also think it's just more of like, when you signed Taurean Prince, like, it was not like a Malik Beasley where it kind of felt like you're going to start. Like, you're going to start. It kind of felt like Taurean Prince, he probably knew, yeah, you're going to start when Khris Middleton's out, but when Khris Middleton's fully healthy, you know, you're going to come off. Like, it feels as though it makes too much sense, both from the roster standpoint, the ego standpoint, quite frankly, and also what Khris can bring, that he'll get there. But I also am just like, at what point are we going to just, he's got to be healthy as well. And that's going to be a tough part. Like, yes, we all want him to be in the starting lineup because he earned it and he is healthy. And if he's not healthy, then it's kind of like, ugh. So I think he'll be there, but it's definitely getting a little bit more tenuous, to say the least.
Yep. Agreed.
So, I'll go to my thing I gathered from the last week. It kind of goes into what we were saying, like, the Bucks cannot beat great teams. And part of that is a lot of matchup. I know Riley and Jack have said, like, quicker guards are a thorn in Milwaukee's side, and we saw that with Jalen Brunson. My biggest thing is, for the Bucks, what is the most important thing on defense? Because with Budenholzer, it was, we're not going to let you get points in the paint. We will sacrifice the three, but you're not getting in the paint and you're not scoring in the paint. And with AJ Griffin, it kind of felt like the opposite. It was like, we're going to limit the threes, we're going to switch, and we're going to try and do that. But we just kept allowing points to get scored at will in the paint. So it kind of felt like there was an idea with Budenholzer and Griffin. And with Doc, it doesn't feel like it. It feels as though we don't want to allow points in the paint, but we also don't want threes. And I mean, having Dame is definitely a big factor in it, where he's not a good defender. And we saw in the Knicks game, Andre Jackson Jr. and AJ Green both struggled with Jalen Brunson, who scored 42 points. They both struggled. Andre Jackson Jr. got 3 fouls in the first quarter. AJ Green had 2 fouls within the first half. They didn't have Ryan Rollinson. They didn't have Gary Trent Jr. Like, that would have helped a little bit. But it felt like they couldn't do anything, and then they were relying, because of Brunson and his ability to get to the rim, then it turned into Karl-Anthony Towns, and then they were just allowing a bunch of threes. So it kind of felt like you're not doing either. And a matchup like this is going to expose Milwaukee. Like, it's the same if they play Boston. Boston have players that can get into the paint and can score in the paint, but they also have guys, Boston will shoot a lot of threes. The Cavaliers, they have guys that can cause havoc in the paint, but you still have Donovan Mitchell. You still have all these other players that can shoot threes. The Knicks, they can do both. So I don't know what is Milwaukee's goal when you're going to play these top teams. And even with the Orlando Magic, it was kind of the same thing, where I was like, I don't know what you're focusing on, because Banchero also played really well. So it's just, it feels as though there's no cohesive, like, we're going to stop one or the other. And that's fine. But then if you're going to try and take both approaches, you have to be able to do both. And Milwaukee can't do both at the moment.
The Knicks game was so frustrating. I just couldn't that first period was just so bad. I think it's so hard to know with this point of attack defense trying to find a solution for it, because you always need, you're going to have Dame out there. That's always going to be a problem that you need to solve for defensively. And if Andre Jackson Jr. can't do it, I mean, I don't know, Kyle. Like, I like AJ Green. I'm all for him, but I also watched him get cooked by Anthony Black several times in that Magic game. And I think AJ Green's a fine defender, but if you're getting cooked by Anthony Black in a regular season game, like, I'm scared come the playoff time when he's going to have to step up to that regard. Is Ryan Rollins or Gary Trent Jr. an answer? I don't know. I really think like the Jalen Brunson thing is impossible, right? I would say almost no one's good at guarding Jalen Brunson. Like you could put Jrue Holiday out there and he might be fine, but the guy is insane. And when he's getting the whistle he was getting at that game, not that I'm complaining about the refs or whatever, but like when he gets like 5 to 8 foul calls in the first quarter, you're just not gonna. I just don't know what you're supposed to do defensively. So I don't know, Kyle. I'm really at a loss if they're in one of those matchups, how they're going to be able to stop them from being able to dictate the game to that degree.
Yeah, because of the foul trouble and just getting cooked, the Doc tried throwing Pat Connaughton out there. He played Marjon Beauchamp at one point. Yes. Like, that's how bad it got. And that was on the one end. And then on the other end, you have Karl Anthony Towns, who, to be fair, he played really well. And he has been playing really, really well. But it was kind of like the Knicks have this ability with their wings where do you put Brook on Karl Anthony Towns and that just completely takes him away from the rim and then your rim defense is non-existent? Do you put Giannis out there, but then they tried having Brook especially on Precious Achiuwa and I think OG Anunoby, and I was like, Brook was getting beat and turned around the corner just because he is not as fast. So there is that aspect of the Knicks just don't have that matchup, but the problem is Boston's the same way with Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford. What are you going to do in that circumstance? It's a little bit easier with Cleveland, but Cleveland's got guards that are going to give Milwaukee problems as well. So it did just feel as though this is where that personnel aspect of do the Bucks need to get a guard someone that can guard point guards? Like Andre Jackson Jr. can do it at moments. It's not ideal. Gary Trent Jr. can do it at moments. Like Ryan Rollins right now is probably the best guard, someone that can handle the point of attack. I don't know about DeLon Wright. We didn't get to really see DeLon. And that's kind of the problem is like, all right, do you focus on getting someone like that? Or what's your big situation when Brook's out? Because Bobby's not going to work. And it didn't work. And it never will work. But what is your backup big option? Because then it's like when Brook's not out there, we've seen against the Nets, against the Trailblazers a couple weeks ago, Bobby as the only backup big is not going to help you on defense.
Well, okay, let's talk about Bobby for a little. Are you in the camp of you would be fine trading Bobby?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. So I think that's clearly much more viable this year. I can understand why they haven't done it in years past. I have been banging the drum for years. I wish they would have traded him for Grant Williams whenever that was. I don't care if the value would have.
Yeah, like last year.
Yes, that would have been awesome, I think. I just don't. I think I appreciate Bobby as an energy person and as someone who can still shoot the ball well, but I do think the level of productivity off the bench that this team is getting now has made him much more obsolete and made him a little too redundant with the skills of the other players off the bench, which are questionable defensive players with the ability to score. And so at this point, I really think it would be great if they could find anyone who could play a little more backup big or anything that could unlock those Giannis at center lineups, which I still feel like Doc is just so reticent to go to very much in the regular season. I mean, I think we see it sometimes. The Knicks game seems like a perfect example where you're going to end up playing that a little bit more often than normal, but that didn't go well. So I don't know. It's so difficult with these really good matchups. And the Knicks game, I mean, was just so bad that it's really easy to just over-index on how depressing and far away this team seems from it. But you're right. Defensively, it's just going to be a struggle for this team with some of the personnel that they have.
Yeah, and I feel like it's tough because I know on Brewhoop they had like a trade target, and it's like Chouameni Kamara. Chouameni Kamara from the Portland Trailblazers is like, yeah, he's great. He's a wing defender. That doesn't really fix the problem that the Bucks have, and they have no one that can guard a point. They have no one that can guard a ball handler effectively. Like, can Kamara do it? I'm sure he can, and I get that, and he would be great on a Jason Tatum or Jalen Brunson, 100%. But that doesn't fix okay, what do you do about like a Drew Holiday, Derek White, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland? Like, it doesn't answer any of that. And that's the part that I struggle with is one, like I said, it's got to be one or the other because the Bucks aren't doing either. And when you look at the bench options, it's like Khris Middleton, not a good defender. Pat Connaughton tries, not a good defender at this point anymore. Marjon Beauchamp, not a good defender. AJ Green has moments, but overall average. We'll say average to slightly
that's fair.
Average. Bobby Portis not a good, like, there's no defensive option. Because your one defensive option, you move to the starting lineup, and then the other is Gary Trent Jr., who's, again, above average. I'm hesitant to say there's any good defenders on this team besides maybe Brook and Giannis. And even Giannis, I'm starting to question just because Giannis is more of an effort thing. So that's the tough part. Like, where do you need to fix either ball handling, defense, or more rim protection, and the Bucks don't have either.
And that brings us back to, I mean, in the aggregate, the defensive numbers have been pretty good though still, right? And that's what's been impressive so far. And I still agree with you though that in terms of these star individual matchups, I think that's where they're having problems, right? It's why they're losing to these good teams is you have these players that break the game and they are breaking the Bucks' ability to defend them properly. And that, I mean, this goes back to the whole way we started the conversation, which is, well, if you have these questions defensively, you need to be a supernova offensive team. And they just have not been able to be that this year, even with the elite 3-point shooting numbers. And so they just need to find some way to be a team that everyone is scared of offensively, because that was sort of the whole gambit that John Horst made when he traded for Dame and got rid of Drew. Is, okay, we're going to be a scary offensive team. And so far under Doc, they just haven't been able to do that yet this year. And they're going to need to do it. I mean, what are we halfway through the season already?
We are. I can double check.
We must be really close.
It was one of those where I was like, based on their record, let's see. Currently, the Bucks are. Why can I not get it pulled up? Sorry, viewers and listeners, you're just going to have to deal with it. They've played 37 games.
Okay, so we're almost halfway through the season.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Who do you think has played all 37 games so far this year?
My gut wants to say Brook.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, I was like, Brook, I think Bobby's been available / played.
One other person has played all 37.
Because I'm trying to think, like, Andre Jackson Jr. hasn't, I don't think. Dame hasn't, Giannis hasn't, Khris hasn't, Taurean Prince?
Yep, good call. Yep, Taurean Prince.
Okay.
So a lot of those role players have played quite a few games, but again, we're almost at the halfway point of the season. Like, I know they haven't had Khris, but they gotta figure something out if they're gonna play to this level. If they're gonna be a great offensive team, they gotta figure something out.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like, and we'll have more on Brewhoop on like different trade targets, but I feel like we're kind of at the area where it's like, you gotta find, like, this is where John Horst is gonna have to figure it out next offseason. Like, how much out of the guys that you're bringing in on vet minimum deals, like maybe they thought DeLon Wright could handle that aspect defensively. That so far is not shown to be true. And maybe they thought, they have Liam Robbins on the 2-way as a backup to Brook, but he hasn't really played at all. I just don't know what the plan is, and maybe this is where the Bucks overhaul things. Not having Bobby Portis, not having Pat Connaughton, like that can give you a little bit more flexibility. So we'll just have to see. But is there any other things, Adam, that you wanted to talk about? Because I have one quick part of. I have one quick, minor question.
Nothing major. Only other thing I'll say is the start of the Knicks game, I was very optimistic seeing Andre Jackson Jr. score a couple transition buckets, including a semi-athletic layup. And I wish they would do that more because he constantly runs the floor. And I think if they could throw some of those bounce passes to him and he figured out how to finish it, 4 quick, easy points for that dude, that's something I think he could get every game. And that would be the total amount of, he does that. And then he hits 1 3. That's all you need from him to be on the court and not foul. So I'd like to see just a little bit more of that in terms of pushing the pace. But that was my only other observation.
Yeah. My question, and it comes down to, so currently Milwaukee is in the 6th spot. They're tied with Miami, but they have the tiebreaker just by head-to-head. Detroit's only half a game. Atlanta's only a game and a half. Chicago's 3 games. But Milwaukee's only one full game away from the Orlando Magic, and they would have the tiebreaker as of right now. So at this point, let's just say the Bucks don't get the 4 seed. Which of these 4 would you rather face in the playoffs? Orlando, New York, Boston, or Cleveland?
I mean, I think Orlando would be the number 1 pick for me. Was your question who I do want to face or who I don't?
Yeah, who's the out of those 4, out of the top 4 between Cleveland, Boston, New York, and Orlando, who would you want to face the most, and which would you want to see the least?
Okay. I would say Orlando the most. I think they're still just a little unproven, and it could be their offenses can be really rough in the playoffs. So I think I still like our chances against them most, especially over the other teams. I think they have the fewest kind of offensive team players that would give the Bucks trouble on the defensive end. Honestly, I'd probably rather see the Magic also than the Pacers. Out of the other 3 teams, who do I want to face the least? God. Honestly, probably Boston. I get rationales for the other 2, but I just think Boston's really good. I think they have championship equity. I don't know how the Cavaliers have played amazing. I can see them doing fine into the playoffs, maybe finally breaking through. And the Knicks are great, but I still kind of assume that one of their key players will just get hurt because of how much they're playing. So I just think Boston is so well-rounded. We just don't have good wing defenders to guard those guys. I just can't see us being able to do that. And I know we can't guard Jalen Brunson, but I think Boston would be the one I least want to see.
I agree on Orlando just because it feels as though the matchup is still terrible, but I think the Bucks offense can do just enough to break through with Orlando. I have the Knicks as the option just because out of the times that Boston, I understand with Boston, but you can also hope, and this is probably the problem is with Boston, they're so reliant on the 3 ball that maybe they get cold at the worst time, or you can, with how Milwaukee's shooting the 3 ball, you can at least try and match that. And they've played Boston really close in all these games. Cleveland, they've played well against, but I just worry about trying to guard both Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell because you can't hide Dame. You can kind of hide Dame with Boston. You can put him on Drew. You can put him on Derek White. You can put him on one of those 2, and that kind of works. Yes, you still have that issue of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, but you can get by with that. I just don't know about New York because, as we saw, unless you're going to do a guard by committee with Jalen Brunson, it's just the matchups are bad, and Karl Anthony Towns can pretty much render Brook useless. They have enough of the wings between OG Anunoby, Precious Achua, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, Miles McBride. They have all these other guys that can really give Milwaukee's wings problems, and you can just put those wings and then just have Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, and it completely throws Milwaukee out of sync. So that's, I would say, I'd still think the Knicks because they have enough balance of an offense that causes Milwaukee too many problems that we've seen now in the 2 times that these 2 teams have played. The Knicks have played them off the floor. Well, at least with Boston and Cleveland, odds are low that they could beat them, but there's more of a chance.
I can see that. I think my one reason for wanting for I would rather face the Knicks is I do think Giannis has a bigger advantage against the Knicks scoring wise. Yeah. And I think for some reason, there's just a stupid Al Horford thing that just continues to rear its ugly head when Giannis is facing him. And I think Giannis could theoretically average like 45 in a series against the Knicks. And that would be like the only way I think we would win. And I think he could do that against them. I don't think he could do that against the Celtics.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. So, all right. We're gonna shift because we gotta get into some positives. So I got not icebreaker questions, rapid fire questions. They're for anyone that's listening, they're basically icebreakers. So
yeah,
in team meetings, are you the kind of person that are you more of the you're on camera and you're just quietly nodding along? Are you the kind that is when you're off camera, like you're off camera but you're talking? Like if you had the choice on how you want to. Are you going to be on camera or off camera?
I try to always be on camera. Part of it because that's like one of our rules at work is to try and be on camera if you can have your camera on.
Okay. All right. I would prefer not to be on camera. I will be on camera. I don't like being on camera. If I don't have anything to contribute, I don't like, because then it's like I'm just awkwardly sitting here. Like I had a meeting this morning. I was like, I have nothing to contribute to this conversation, but I have to at least look interested.
I think that makes sense.
I mean, like look off to the side and like do side emails.
That being said, I will say I am more of a stand by the side. I might weigh in. Like there are a decent amount of meetings that I lead, and so obviously then I'm talking. But otherwise, I'm more of like a stay on the sidelines.
That's fair. That's fair. The other question: I don't think South Carolina got any snow, but did it get cold? Like, how's the weather down there? Like, did you get the cold? Are you getting any of the snow? Is it just way too warm for everyone's sake and you're just going to rub it in my face as it's like 3 degrees outside here in Wisconsin?
Kyle, it's cold, okay? It was 30 degrees the other day.
Oh, boy.
It was 30 degrees, and I got to admit, I'm weak now. I'm really weak. It feels really chilly when I go out. I mean, okay, our cars, I still get ice on my car. So I still have to deal with that in the morning. So it's not like, all sunshine and daisies, but it definitely is nowhere near as cold as up there. Did not get snow, although there's snow in the forecast for next week. So I'm optimistic. Okay. The whole city, I'm sure, will shut down, but no snow yet. Hoping we'll get it soon. But it does not get as cold as up there, but I still have to go out in the morning and start my car to get it defrosting, all of that kind of stuff.
Okay. If you could be in any TV show, like if you could be in any TV show world or setting, what would you pick?
That's tough. World or setting. I would probably. Okay, wait. Do you have one?
I have one. I'm
go
leaning
first.
Towards kind of like I have like 2. Parks and Rec and Modern Family. I probably lean more Modern Family because better weather in LA as opposed to being in Indiana. But I would say that I just want like a simple, easy situation. Like the reason why I thought of it is like there's always an anime question. Like if you could live in which anime worlds, like all these sound terrible. Like I can't be Naruto. There's ninjas flying over it. Attack on Titan. There's like 20-foot beast trying to kill me. Like no. So I want a simple, easy one.
Yeah, okay. A sitcom is good. I think. I mean, I can't do The Office. Maybe Gilmore Girls, actually. I think Gilmore Girls would be good. Living in Stars Hollow. I think that actually might be the one. I just started the Gilmore Girls rewatch the other day, so I think that might be my vote over The Pit, which is in a Pittsburgh intensive care hospital unit that's on Max. I just started that the other day. I don't want to be in that. That was scary.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I like the one show I always go back to is The Good Place. Like, no, I don't want to deal with like the circumstance of like existential crisis of death and everything.
I thought about that one too. I agree. I don't want to have to deal with that all the time.
Too much. And then the last one I got is there any movie that you like someone asked, hey, what movie should I watch? What is the first movie you think of where it's like you have to watch this movie? Whether it's because it's your favorite or because it's really good or whatever.
Okay. Off the top of my head, I would say Whiplash.
Ooh, I don't think I've ever seen that one.
That's like one of my favorites. It's really good. It's got Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons in it. and Miles Teller is like a going to school to be a jazz musician, to be a drummer, and it's basically like J.K. Simmons is kind of an abusive teacher, but trying to get the best out of him, and it's just a really, really amazing movie that kind of makes you think about what leads to what causes greatness, what can break someone, what is good teaching versus bad teaching, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a really great movie.
Yeah, that's a good. Okay, I'll have to check that one out. I have Interstellar. Well,
yeah,
it's just so good. It's
really also entertaining. It's just there's so many great parts in it.
It's good. It's entertaining. The music is like the music and the score is fantastic. Like I think it's James. I think it's James Nolan, Christopher Nolan, not James Nolan. I think it's Christopher Nolan's best film. And I love Inception. Like, I do love Inception. I did like Shutter Island, but I think Interstellar is his best movie. And if I can watch that for the first time again, I would.
I haven't seen that in so long. I might have to rewatch that.
Yeah, it's good rewatch value. I will say that. So, all right. Well, I have a film review. It's a kid movie. Despicable Me 4. Because.
Dude, I'm so thankful I haven't had to do any Despicable Me's or Minions. I mean, I'm doing worse stuff on YouTube right now. I'd actually rather watch that, but I'm excited for this.
Well, it got to the point where Sterling was watching video, like Sterling had watched YouTube videos on the TV earlier, and I was like, "Yes, you can have the TV. Like, you got to put something else on. Like, I'm not spending the whole day watching YouTube videos. You got
never more
I
relatable.
Need to put something else on. Literally anything. If I watch one more kid play with like a monster truck, I'm gonna lose my mind." Mind you, it was Sunday. It was like New Year's like Eve. It was like the New Year's stretch. So he was just here. So Sterling went to Peacock. I don't know why, but he decided to put on Despicable Me 4. It was fine. I mean, this feels like the thing is like I've never been a big Despicable Me person. Like I saw the first one and it was okay. Like it's fine. I think it's gotten to the point where it's like, all right, we've really just oversaturated like Despicable Me and like the Minions and everything. It's like we don't need. I understand it's a moneymaker and that's why they're doing it, but we don't need this. Like we didn't need this fourth movie. It just felt, I just didn't enjoy it. It was kind of like it just feels like the same kind of jokes and the same thing with the Minions where it's just like you've seen them the first time. It's the same running shtick more or less. I think I'm
okay. Wait, have you seen the second and third Despicable Me's?
I definitely did not see the third. I may have vaguely watched the second one.
Does it feel like the story is progressing? Like, is there a gradual progression to Gru's arc?
Yes, I would say there is a Yes, because Gru is still adjusting. Again, with Gru adjusting more to being like a family man and not really being a villain and like kind of trying to have this different life. So there is more of that aspect of it where it's like, okay, this is it. So there is character growth in Gru. Like I said, I didn't see the third one, so I don't know what the hell happened. But it was kind of like, oh, he's not trying to be like super villain. He's like truly trying to be good. Which I know in the second movie is like he was still kind of trying to be good, but also not. And the first movie was kind of so. Yeah, I think I just don't see the point of Despicable Me 4. We didn't need it.
Okay, wait. Rating. I need to hear the rating.
4. It was a good mindless thing to put on. It's a good mindless thing to put on. It's one of those where it's like you can put it on and it's like it could be good background noise, but I'm kind of just I think a lot of it is just it's the same movie as like the other ones in terms of like the humor and the jokes and everything. So I don't know.
Okay, real quick because there's no Riley, so we can go full dad on this. What's your Mount Rushmore of kid movies to watch and enjoy as an adult? Yes, to enjoy. It's on. You know it's going to be on. What are those top 4 kid movies for you?
Why am I drawing up? Inside Out. I've thoroughly enjoyed Inside Out. So that's definitely one. Cars 3.
Really? Okay. Interesting.
I
Never
liked
seen
Cars 3. I really enjoyed Cars 3. I think it's just because it at least felt more like a good way to tie up the trilogy. It felt like we're good. We don't need a Cars 4. They have not made a Cars 4, but it felt like a good way to tie it all up. So I would say, yeah, Inside Out, Cars 3. I feel like I've seen it so many times, I have to say Sonic 2. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I have to say it, and then I'm trying to think because, like, I feel like a Disney movie. I'm trying to think like Disney movie because there's like a stretch where we played Coco a lot, and I might say Coco. No, Encanto. Encanto's fun.
Okay, I like that. Encanto is really fun. I miss being able to watch Encanto. God, I would kill to just have Haley want to watch Encanto instead of everything else. Also,
that's the thing with the YouTube. I'm just like, I can't do this.
It's so bad. It's so bad. I'm like getting to the point where I just have to like block every channel on her YouTube Kids account. Okay, this is hardcore kids, but I will say Sonic. I can't believe I didn't watch it sooner. I feel bad for having done that. Watched a couple weekends ago with Haley. Fantastic movies. So much easier to watch than a lot of other kids' movies.
Oh yeah. Yeah. In terms of like overall like kid stuff, I mean, Bluey is top tier, 100%. Miss Rachel, that was Miss Rachel and Bluey were like 1 and 2 of like, we can watch this all day. Fine. This works for me. I feel like there was others, but mainly just Bluey and Miss Rachel. I feel like those are like the two where it's like if I had to pick, it'll easily be those two. If I never have to watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, I will rejoice. Thankfully, I think the kids have grown out of it.
Good for you. Good for you.
You'll get there, I swear.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that dad divergence.
No problem. And Rod's going to hear this and be like, I'm going to fast forward through this. All right. We're going to get to the last part. It's our prediction. So the Bucks have a 4-game homestand. So it starts Tuesday against the Sacramento Kings. And then they have the Orlando Magic on Wednesday, have a day off. Then they play the Toronto Raptors Friday and the Philadelphia 76ers on Sunday. Not Saturday, Sunday. Adam, how do you think the week's going to go? Because I'm still undecided.
I'm not excited about it, but I'm going to say 2-2. I don't know. Maybe I'm feeling too strongly after the Knicks game, but Sacramento's playing well. They just beat Boston. Orlando's a good team. The Raptors are really stinky. And Philadelphia is playing better, although they did just lose to the Pelicans, which was really sweet. So 2-2. I don't know. I can't get a good feel for if this team's really willing or able to just go on a run. Although they could really use a chance to bank some wins. But yeah, 2-2.
I'm going to say 2-2 as well. Although I think they lose to Sacramento. I think they beat Orlando. It's probably going to be another rock fight. They beat Toronto. And I don't know why, but I feel like the Philly game is going to be like kind of game where they just lose and it's going to piss me off. Like one of these games this week is going to piss me off. And I think it's going to be Philly. I have no faith. Right. I feel like this is going to be one of those games where I expect them to win. And for some reason, when Philly comes to Milwaukee, they play a lot better. So it's going to annoy me. But I'm going to say 2-2. They lose to the Sixers and Kings. Hopefully I'm wrong. And when I am wrong, we will make sure to touch base with you to see how your friends up in Philly are doing after that loss. So that is going to be it for our episode. Thank you for listening. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with all of your friends. Make sure to check us out at brewhoop.com, where we will have game previews and recaps. We are going through, like I said, trade candidates. So be on the lookout for that to see what profiles are out there. Along with, our recurring stuff, like the Tuesday tracker, Wednesday weekly wrap up, when Riley is back, Monday morning media roundup as well. So thank you for enjoying, and we will talk to you later.